Every time that I failed, every time that I've emptied myself, there was always someone to fill my cup. For those that I've done wrong, for those that I've known for oh so long, I'll always hold a place in my heart for you.
All right. How you doing, Sharna? How you doing today?
Yeah, going really good. Thank you.
Yeah, well, happy to have you on the show today. And it's actually for everybody out there listening. She's actually in Tuesday. We're in Monday, so she's recording early in the morning with us. She's graced us with her presence and is going to share her journey and her story with us. And so I'm just going to hand it over to her. And Sharna, tell the people about who you are. How you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm from all the way over in Australia. So a little bit about me. I think I started my journey with, I guess, sort of finding my purpose in life quite early on. I was 19 when my dad passed away. So I always knew that there was something more to me. I just didn't know how that was all going to play out. I felt like I was different, different to everyone else. I had something different, a different perspective, a different something that I knew that I had to offer. I just, I didn't know what form that was going to take. And I am also a qualified dental nurse, so I always loved helping people. I actually have a letter here at my house I kept from a patient who wrote me a letter of thanks to say that I was an asset to the surgery. And that was just by me allowing her the space to actually express how she was feeling. She was really anxious and scared, and I was able to, hold her hand through that and just tell her that, she wasn't going crazy. So again, I knew that there was something more to me. I just didn't know. I think you just get told when you're a kid, go to school, find a job, and then that's it. Like you're in that job for the rest of your life. But I just knew that there was more to me. I knew that I wasn't meant to be in a traditional job for the rest of my life. I had a higher calling. I just had to find it. And then we experienced pregnancy loss. We were trying to start a family for 5 years, and, it was always, I thought that I'd grow up, get married, have a family. And I didn't sort of think that there was going to be any problems to that. But when we experienced pregnancy loss, like our whole entire life just was brought crashing down. And it wasn't until I sort of was coming out of the grief of that I started to realize that was my calling. There wasn't enough support for me to go through that and enough understanding from other people. So I knew that I had to create that. I had to be that support for other women, because if I was feeling alone in my grief and misunderstood and as if I was the only woman going through it, that there would be someone else that would be feeling the same way. So I knew that I had to do something. So as I was grieving, as I was moving through that for myself, I was starting to put together like a toolkit type thing. And then when I sort of came out the other side, in a sense, I had absolute clarity that that's what I was going to do. And I just started, and I put together a program and just started offering my help, offering my guidance and support from a perspective of someone who actually has been through that, and it's not just someone reading from a textbook.
Yeah, and see, that's the key. The key to it, I always believe, is that lived experience. And it's sad that we do have to go through it. And I think most 99% of people that I've talked to have found that purpose going through, the most horrible things in our life, right? And coming from a man, I have been a part of my partners when they have miscarried,
Yeah.
and I was still living under stigma, but it affected me. It still affected me as a man, but I was primarily there for her. And so that was my role, right? That was my role. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. Now, outside of that, far as the grief and everything, I never knew what that was. I just knew I felt a certain way. And I think it's wonderful that you're doing that for women out there, because I do believe it's important. And I know some people out there may go, well, the baby wasn't born. And I go, it doesn't matter. That's a part of this individual. That's a part of this person and this person. Of course, they're going to feel some sort of way, because I don't know if you've ever, in your experience, ever figured, thought about the future. Right? What if this would have happened, and people don't understand. You do grieve that. You grieve that. You grieve the moments where you go and buy the first set of diapers, right? Or the first binky. You take it now, the first argument you have with the baby. I know I did, and that's coming from me. I know I did. I grieved that, because I was like, I had all of these ideas of when the baby gets here, the first thing we'll do is pick an argument. You may not even understand, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to get things straight, things like that, but that's just me. And, and to think otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that anymore. I've been there,
Yeah, that's absolutely, like, there's two elements to it too, because the man is going to grieve so much differently than the woman is, because what my husband told me months down the track was he didn't have the connection. He doesn't have the connection to the baby. So he didn't have that same level of grief that I did, but he was still grieving. And I think the men get a bit lost and maybe dismissed as well, because they think it's all about the woman, but the man is the one that's there witnessing everything, witnessing literally their whole world falling apart too, and no one's really there for the man. So I do incorporate that within my service as well, as to how to really keep that communication and that openness going, I guess, within the relationship, because it's essential that you have the communication between the couple, because that's all you've got. You can't rely on anyone else. And what you said with the, you're grieving the future. Like, as soon as you see those lines on the pregnancy test, your mind immediately shifts to what your future is going to look like and who you are going to be. You're going to be a mum and you're going to be a dad. Like, so you have then this whole different identity for yourself as well. And when that, like, I had an early miscarriage. So it was in the first trimester, and obviously I wasn't showing. So it is hard for people to go, well, how can you grieve anything? Because you weren't showing. And then that's where a lot of those insensitive comments come from as well. It's like, well, at least you weren't showing. I'm like, well, that's no consolation. Like, it's a valid grief. You're grieving the love that you had and the future that you could have had.
And I thought, if a person has never gone through it, they don't understand. They don't grasp the concept, because they're, technically our minds don't think in that way, right? If it hasn't gone through you, of course, you have some sort of opinion, I think a good quote out there, and it still stands true to this day. Mike Tyson said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." You know, I don't wish that on no one, because it does. It does suck. It really does. Even from a man's perspective. But you're right, men, we do grieve differently. It's not like we don't have the connection, right? We have a different perception when we see the baby. So say, for instance, if you saw the baby on the screen or something like that, that's where we develop that connection from. We have to, you have to show us, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're hard-headed. You have to show us, right? You can tell us all you want, but until we see it, and then we like, oh, and then it changes. But the idea is still there, and we do grieve that. And most men that I've ever talked to, men in my group, and that have talked about miscarriages and things like that, they all feel the same way. They all feel as if their needs were just pushed off to the side. They were expected to be something, and it backfired on them for the most part. So, you know, helping women understand as well, like, hey, you know, this is what it looks like. And so, you know, like when men are taking care of you, we're sometimes doing it, or well, majority of the times we're doing it because in the end we want that to be reciprocated as well. We'll take on the housework, we'll take on, you know what I'm saying, working extra hours to make sure that the bills are paid so you can have time to grieve and things like that. That is our role. But soon as you start feeling better, we kind of look at it and go, okay, you know, like I want to take some time as well. You know, I need to work through this as well because it does mess with me. And what I found was that women in those relationships we're started looking at the men, because it takes a little bit, right? They were looking at the men when the men were going, okay, you know, like I'm gonna take some time off as well. You know, you think you can handle this? Most of the women were looking at them going, what's wrong with you? You know, and they were going, and most men, instead of answering that question, we take it and go, you don't know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to deal with it my way. So we close up. And it's only because we don't talk about those emotions. And so now we have a new set of problems that come into play, right? You know, we have the alcoholism, or, you know, the drug usage, or whatever addiction that we decide to latch on to, right? That becomes a priority, becomes our therapy. But the problem is that communication. You don't know, right? And the more you don't know, the more irritated you become. Now the arguments ensue. And I'm going, men grieve the same thing, you know, and it sucks when we have to go through those miscarriages, right? Because no one wants to be put in limbo, right? Because it is very, very emotional. It's you know, I can't explain it from an attachment standpoint from my point of view, right? You know, because I'm going to see it totally different. But in an unbiased way, I'm constantly looking at the scenarios, who I'm talking to, and things like that. So I want to stay mindful of the individual. But again, I will only see it from my point of view.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of relationships do break down, is the assumption that they assume that the other person knows how they're feeling.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of relationships do break down over pregnancy loss because, you know, I experiencing it myself. Like I looked at my husband and I'm like, why are you okay today? And I'm falling apart. Why are you going back to work? And I can't even physically get out of bed. Like, don't you care? And, you know, and he was going back to work. He did have time off, and we spent that time together. And, you know, he cried the day that we found out that we had lost it. But then after that, it was like, you know, he had to pull it all together. He had to be that pillar of strength for me because I was falling apart. So he felt like he had to hold it all together. And then we started to have arguments because I'm like, why are you like, you don't even look like you're grieving anymore. Like what's happening? And what had happened is our communication had completely broken down. And I assumed he knew how I felt, and he assumed I knew how he felt. Did I just say the same thing twice? We assumed how there was the assumption that we both knew how each other felt. We didn't communicate it. And that was where all of our problems started to come in, because we hadn't given each other the time or space to actually listen to each other and listen without judgment, and to know that that person was safe to say how they were actually feeling. And yeah, it's true, because a man will, he might look like he's okay, but then he might be, like you said, it might be alcohol, it might be drugs, or it might just be, filling that space with work, or, keeping himself busy, so that, and then he's just constantly doing something, but not actually allowing himself to grieve. But it's absolutely that assumption that we need to sort of just break and really open up the communication and have a safe space for you both to say, well, hey, this is actually how I'm feeling. And whether it's one-sided for a while, it doesn't matter. At least you have a space where you can sort of say, whatever it is that's happening for you, and be there for each other, because it, like you said before, like, you're both going through it, you're both feeling it, you both have a different way of, like, a different connection to the baby. So the grief is going to be different, but just need to be able to express that.
Yeah. I think for the mothers, it's more personable, because it is part of you. It's growing inside of you. You feel it, right?
Yeah.
Your body goes through these changes. Of course, we don't know that. We like to assume that we do, but more the times than not, every time we assume, we are wrong. So we just learn over time just to keep our mouth shut, right? Because it just don't look good for us. It doesn't. It looks as, man, don't you not know? Like, do you know? Like, that's what the locker room talk is like when we're together. Like, did you know this? Like, oh,
No.
what else happened? We taking notes. We trying to figure it out. But the truth of the matter is, some things are just better left to the people that are best at doing them. And what I mean by that, men are better off, we're better at trying to figure things out. You see what I'm saying? And having the time and patience to try to figure it out, bump our head a little bit. We might get in trouble. I mean, I don't think there's a man out there who hasn't experienced that one before. And I don't think there's a woman out there that can honestly say, you haven't pointed the finger and was like, you know what, you're crazy, something wrong with you, right? It's the same concept, when it comes down to it. And it's crazy as it sounds, that's what it's like. It's like one person's pointing the finger at the other one while the other person's going like this, because we don't know. It's mixed.
Yeah. And
that's what we perceive it as. It's not really mixed. We just don't understand the language. On both ends. Most men, after a while, we feel like we're ignored, right? We pay attention when women go through these things, because we're craving the same thing, but more than likely, like, I've seen family members that have totally neglected fiancés and husbands when the wife goes through it, and the husband is left out alone, left wandering around, like, so of course, with our masculine nature, of course, we have to go out and feel as if we have to destroy something.
Yeah.
Over time, it's a trickle effect. It really is a trickle effect. And the problem with that is that we don't understand what those emotions are. So, looking at it from a woman's point of view and looking from a man's point of view, it takes us a while to actually dig into those emotions, but it's the stigma that we live behind.
Yeah.
You know, you have to man up. You know what I'm saying? You can't cry. You know, keep your head up. Keep moving forward. Yes, you're going to keep moving forward, but there's three other ones over there that we have to look past. Or, you know, my favorite one was keep your head up, don't cry. You know, that was my favorite one. After a while, for me, it was like, you know what? I can't pick my head up anymore. I'm tired. I am truly tired. Now, verbalizing that into a conversation was the hardest thing I ever learned how to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I almost didn't get that chance. And listen to your story and how you got into it, and listen to how your husband, it makes perfect sense. You know, how your husband handled it, and then understanding that confusion. It's pretty much the same thing across the board. And no one really pays attention to it. And I'm going, okay, look at this. So just like you said, it started off this way, got into the arguments, and then there was some sort of realization. Most people never get to the realization. It gets to the arguments and are destroyed by it, you know, and it's over just a miscommunication. How do you propose men and women come together and have that space to have those conversations so that doesn't keep happening?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, every relationship will be different, and I guess judging for yourself, like just judge your own relationship and how you both work the best. With us, we didn't specifically set aside time, but we just allowed each other the opportunity to really just say what was on our mind. Whereas, you know, if, you know, some relationships might be good and go, well, hey, let's just allocate some, like an hour or something. Let's just have a coffee or a glass of wine or something. Let's just sit down and have a chat, and everything that comes out is going to be judgment free. No opinions, just this is how I'm feeling. And potentially you could, you know, in that space, judging on how it goes, you know, asking for, you know, what kind of support you need from the other person too. Or, you know, I think for me, when we were having our arguments, it was because he was trying to control the situation. He was trying to control everything that could be controlled, which was like the bills and stuff like that. So we were having arguments over just stupid things because everything else seemed out of control. So coming together and just sort of just laying everything out on the table and like working through it together, asking each other for that support that you particularly need in that time, and allowing each other the space to have good days without judgment, because one person might have a good day and the other person might be falling apart, but to have that understanding that that person is okay, and then maybe the one that is falling apart can ask for a little bit more on that day, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding. But just, I guess, finding something that works for you as a couple. Like the other thing that really helped me understand my husband was learning the love languages, because he was showing me how he was there for me, but it wasn't how I was there for him. So I was expecting him to, you know, show me affection and, you know, do all of that stuff, like do acts of service for me, like do the dishes, do the washing, do whatever, but he wouldn't do that. And I was like, well, why won't you do that? Because that's what I do for you. But then understanding what he was and how he was showing me that he was actually caring made a huge difference in how I was able to relate to him as well.
See, I never learned my love languages. And everybody tells me, Tony, you have to read, the love languages. And I'm going, yeah, I do it. I even have the book sitting over on top of the shelf. Everyone's opened it. I'm thinking maybe, I need to go back in because, I keep making some mistakes, and, but honestly, I don't even know my own love languages. I just know what I like and what I don't like. And I think that's a lot to do with just my personality, and it changes. Who would have thought, right? But there's some things that stay consistent. I'm just still trying to figure who Tony is, trying to figure me out for the most part. And for the most part, I'm there. I'm getting myself together. I understand, myself. I would say from the back of my hand to maybe about a quarter of my front hand, and I still have room to grow.
Yeah.
And that was born through grief, my grief, just like your grief, and a lot of other people I've talked to, just the journey of becoming and understanding, developing those tools. It changes us. It truly tells us who we are. Right? And to be talking about something so sensitive as pregnancy loss, and I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. People need to know that they're not by themselves, especially women, and they need to know how to support each other, but also the men as well. We need to know how to support each other and communicate with each other a lot better, not just for ourselves, though, not just for ourselves, but for you guys. And maybe this conversation that we're having today, someone can look at their significant other and go, that's what okay, I get it, and maybe they change someone else's life. That's the goal, right? Is to share those things. And what are some of the tools that helped you along the way that you developed throughout your journey coming out through the other side?
Yeah. I just wanted to add one more thing too, like if with the couple, helping each other through the communication, I was also told, which worked for a little bit for my husband and I, going for walks and just opening the communication when you're out walking.
Okay.
That was actually really beneficial too, because then you're not in a house or a confined space environment, like you're out in, nature. And some of the time I was actually able to get him to open up more out on a walk than I was able to, in a seated kind of environment. But that's just something that sort of just came to me then. But to answer your question, so the big thing for me that helped me through the loss of my dad and also the loss of our baby was journaling. It was just writing everything that was in my head out onto paper. I remember once I took about 8 pages to a psychologist and I'm just like, this is what's in my head. And she kind of just read it and she's like, wow, like this is trauma. Like she goes, there's so much on this page. Like, because through my experience, I actually thought, because I was losing so much blood, I actually thought I was going to die. And I remember ringing my mom and I said, I was laying on the floor with my legs in the air and I'm like, because I don't know, I'm like, I was passing out every time I was standing up, and I rang her and I said, I'm going to die. I don't know how much of this I can take. And that was very much a belief that I had. And coming out the other side of obviously I had to go into surgery, and coming out the other side of that I was traumatized. There was a lot of fear that there was the belief that I was going to die. So when I gave these pages to my psychologist, she's just like, she had literally no words. She just read it. But that has been throughout all of my challenges, like that has been something where I have been able to just get out what's in my head. And as you're writing, you're processing things. You're actually like allowing yourself the space as well to actually start to process what's in your head. So it starts to maybe make sense. You don't have to, it doesn't have to make sense if it doesn't. But to have no judgment as well with what comes out, because, you know, this is a kind of like a sacred space for you to be honest and just to be true to yourself and really get out what's in really deep inside you. Get out what it is that you're really feeling. Get out what it is that you're really thinking. Like, and it could be horrible thoughts. Like I thought horrible thoughts that just weren't me, but it was me at that moment because I was hurting. So yeah, allowing yourself that space, whether it is just getting a pad and a paper, which is what I did initially. I just got a pad and a paper and I just wrote. I needed to get out of my head. And then journaling kind of became a thing. I was able to really start to pinpoint what emotions were coming up, why they were coming up, what they were coming up for, like what was it that they were coming to show me. Because essentially emotions are their energy. They're not designed to stay in you. They're designed to be released. They're designed to come out. So giving yourself, your body, the space to be able to acknowledge what emotions are coming. And they're coming to you to teach you something. They're coming to you to show you something to be healed. So they're not negative or positive. Like your body doesn't think that they're a negative emotion or a positive emotion. It's just an emotion. And it's just something that your body needs you to be aware of and needs you to understand. And through journaling, I was able to really start to understand what was coming up and why it was coming up. And then I was able to then realize what beliefs I had kind of created for myself as well. And also like allowing yourself the space to, if you get triggered, to go through those emotions again, to understand what emotion has come up, what's been triggered, why has it been triggered? And then a lot of the time it's just past conditioning because essentially you've been through something that's horrible. So your body's afraid, your body's trying to keep you safe in a sense, but just to be able to journal all of that out and it process it that way was a huge tool, which I do teach within my business as well. Because if not journaling, it's just some sort of form of that, some sort of form of being able to acknowledge your emotions.
Now tell people about your business, you know, and all the services that you provide.
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning, it was kind of, I knew that, you know, with everything that I was going through, there had to be more women that were experiencing it too. Like I honestly felt like I was the only woman going through miscarriage. But when I was in hospital, they told me 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. And I was like, that's a hell of a like huge statistic that, you know, there's a lot of women that are walking around with that experience. And not enough people are talking about it. There's still, like you said before, there's still so much stigma in society. Society puts sort of, they don't know how to react and respond to someone that's had that type of loss. So a lot of women feel like, or one, they either can't talk about it, or two, when they do open up and talk about it, they are met with these philosophical answers that people are going to try and fix them, but they're not broken. So like, you know, a lot of them are like, oh, you know, at least you weren't further along, or like I said before, at least you weren't showing. So women don't have the space to actually process those emotions and process their grief, or actually feel like they can grieve. So what I offer is the first service is like one-on-one coaching, because I know women actually need to have that space to grieve, to process the emotions, and to be able to look forward to a future again that they potentially can't see, because, you know, the whole world has been shattered. The rug's been pulled out from underneath them. They're like, who are they now? What values do they have now? What can they look forward to? Because this is just, it's so soul shattering that you feel like, well, you may as well just crawl into a hole and, you know, give up. But the thing is too, like if women push aside all of those emotions and that the experience and just try and forget about it, the trauma and like the unhealed emotions don't go away. They may lay dormant for a while, but they will come back. And I think a lot of women don't sort of see that playing out either. But then it could be, you know, a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the track where all of this will come back again. So it's allowing them to process those emotions as they're moving through their experience, to rediscover their identity, to reconnect with who they really are, so that they can look forward to that future. They can redefine their experience for themselves and really feel empowered and have that beautiful life that they want to have, that they had before it all happened, but it's just going to look different now. So it's reconnecting them to, you know, how that's all going to look now. And the sort of second part of my services is being able to teach service providers, women service providers, what I actually do, and to integrate that into their business, because there's a lot of women like walking around with this unhealed emotions and trauma that is going to affect all different areas of their life. So to allow them the full transformation of, you know, who they are, you know, investing money into, I want that service provider to know they can have that extra skill set to deal or to guide and support a woman through her emotions, through those blocks and beliefs that she might have created for herself, that she's maybe unworthy of that transformation, or maybe she's unworthy to have a healthy pregnancy, or maybe she's unworthy to connect with a baby after loss, because there's so many different ways that the emotional trauma will show up, and the beliefs that you create for yourself in those moments will show up. Especially the feeling of being unworthy, like that'll go through with you if you don't sort of, if you're not able to process it and know that you are worthy of having everything that you want in your life. It is going to stop you. It's going to prevent you from actually being successful in your life and having the life that you want. So I want women's service providers to have that extra skill set so they can support women on a deeper and more meaningful level, to be able to allow them the transformation that their service offers. So yeah, I probably only in the last, I guess, 6 months or so decided to actually create the blueprint so that I could teach the service providers. I think a lot of my focus at the beginning of my business was on one-on-one coaching, but then I had so many women reaching out going, I want to be that person, that support person. So I was like, okay, I think it's the universe telling me that I have something else to offer here that I originally didn't see.
Yeah, there's so many areas to it, you know, and I think we've just now scratched the surface of it. You know, we haven't dug deep down into it yet. But how can people find you? Where are you on your social media or anything like that? Website?
Yeah. So my website is www.sharnasouthan.com. Otherwise, I have my Instagram, where I probably will be most active. And that's just at Institute of Healing _PL. So essentially, my business is called the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss. And on my website and on the Instagram page, they will find all of the services that I have mentioned as well. On the website, I also do share other people's stories so that women don't feel alone, and sort of other little bits and pieces, some free tools that they can have access to. But they can also find that on my Instagram page as well. There's a lot of free tools on there, as well as obviously the programs that I run.
Now, I love this conversation, and what would you tell someone out there today to give them some sort of encouragement and drive to want to seek the healing that you're offering? I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Just, I guess, listen to what it is that you truly need. Don't listen to what someone else is telling you that you need. If you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like, the grief is going to last forever, if you feel like the situation that you're in is going to last forever and it's heavy and it's scary, reach out, because, it isn't your final destination. It isn't going to last forever, but you don't have to do it alone, and you shouldn't have to do it alone. You need someone on the outside of you to help you see clearly, because when you are in that experience, it's hard to see for yourself what your potential is. So really just come back to yourself and ask yourself what it really is that you're after. And it might be hard to actually have an answer for that. And that's okay. Just sit with it. Just allow yourself to be and feel whatever it is that you need to. And then one day it might just become clear to you. Be like, okay, I'm ready to be able to move through this. I'm ready to be able to listen to what someone else has to say and get that support that you need. And that's the thing, it's so much harder to try and figure all of that out on your own. It's so much harder to try and navigate it all on your own. So don't feel like you have to. Just really, pay attention to what it is that you need. What's that inner voice telling you? And just don't listen to anyone else, and don't listen to what they have to say and where you should be or how you should be feeling.
Man, I totally agree with that. Well, Sharna, I want to say thank you for being on the show today, coming out here and being courageous enough to share your story with the audience. And, her links will be down below. And women, please, my heart is just in the right place right now after listening to her. And so many things. Women, get the support that you need. Reach out to Sharna. Go to a website, look at her services, follow her on Instagram. I do. And see her stuff across my page too, because I share it as well. So if you're in that spot and you're looking for support, reach out. But also, pay attention to your partner, pay attention to yourself, stay healthy, and especially in these times and everything. And until next time, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Memories of Us. Leave us a message down below, reach out, rate us, tell us how we're doing. Until next time, you guys stay strong. All right.